Cristiano Ronaldo arrived at a motorcycle dealership located in a remote city, where he was to begin filming the film. He was dressed simply and discreetly, pulling on his cap to hide his identity. The seller did not recognize him. To the consultant, he looked like an ordinary idle onlooker, wasting their precious time that could have been devoted to more worthy clients. However, what happened during this visit not only made the seller deeply regret his behavior, but also revealed the truth that changed everything. Before we continue this story, right where you are looking at. If you like such stories, subscribe to the channel, because tomorrow you will find another special story. After a long day on set, Cristiano Ronaldo decided to take advantage of a sunny day to explore the small town. Wearing a cap to avoid unnecessary attention, he calmly walked along the quiet streets, looking at the shops and enjoying the unhurried pace of life. Despite all the achievements and successes, he lacked something. His motorcycle, left in Lisbon, seemed like an irreparable loss. Riding wasn't just a hobby for him, it was an integral part of who he was. The feeling of the wind on his face, the roar of the engine, the freedom that two wheels gave him, at that moment Cristiano needed it more than ever. It was then that he noticed an imposing store at the end of the street. Above the entrance, a sign sparkled in gold letters, Aurora Motors. The modern, luxurious facade was surrounded by glass walls, through which you could see the elite motorcycles displayed on pedestals. It was the perfect place to find what he was looking for. Cristiano entered the store through the automatic doors, and the soft ringing of a bell announced his arrival. The interior decoration of the cabin was no less striking than the facade. The white marble floor sparkled under the light of the lamps, and the motorcycles seemed more like works of art than just cars. The entire interior exuded an air of exclusivity. He calmly inspected the motorcycles until he was interrupted by cold words. "Good afternoon," the salesman said, approaching him with measured steps. Tall, dressed in an impeccably fitting suit, he carried himself restrained, but there was superiority in his gaze. "How can I help?" Cristiano slightly adjusted his cap and calmly answered. "In looking for a motorcycle to buy. Something classic, combining power and freedom." The salesman raised an eyebrow, assessing Cristiano from head to toe. Simple clothes, modest appearance, confidence without ostentatious luxury, all this did not fit in with his ideas about wealthy clients. He forced a smile on duty, but there was a note of condescension in his tone. "Oh, of course," he drawled, with false courtesy. "Our motorcycles are exclusive, you know? We only work with premium models. Usually, our customers are those who really appreciate special transport." He paused, making it clear that Cristiano might not fit this profile. Cristiano remained unfazed. He was used to being judged by his appearance, and did not react to hints. "I see. Do you have motorcycles for rent?" "Just curious." The salesman laughed shortly, dryly, with a hint of mockery in his voice. "No, sir, we're definitely not in the rental business. Aurora Motors is an elite salon. Our customers buy motorcycles. Moreover, our models require significant investments. But perhaps I could show you something simpler?" The subtext was clear. Cristiano heard the arrogance in the seller's voice, but did not show it. He took a deep breath and calmly answered. "Thank you, but I'd like to see your best models. I'm interested in something special." The salesman narrowed his eyes, clearly displeased that he had not been able to intimidate the customer. However, he nodded and made an inviting gesture. "Very good. But I warn you, our motorcycles are not suitable for everyone. Follow me." They stopped in front of a Ducati Panigale V4, a sports bike with an aggressive design and cutting-edge technology. The seller theatrically pointed to the car. "This Panigale V4 is one of our most advanced models. It combines impeccable design and cutting-edge technology. Only true connoisseurs can appreciate its uniqueness." He cast a sidelong glance at Cristiano, making it clear that he doubted his competence. Cristiano carefully examined the motorcycle, then shook his head slightly. "Has great, but not exactly what I want. I'm looking for something a little more classic to feel connected to the road." The seller sighed irritably. Perhaps something simpler will suit you. He led Cristiano to the Harley-Davidson Fat Boy 114, a massive motorcycle with chrome parts. This is the Harley-Davidson Fat Boy. An icon, of course. Reliable, time-tested, but nothing supernatural. It is quite possible that it will suit you. Cristiano ran his hand over the handlebars of the motorcycle, ignoring the salesman's dismissive tone. A slight smile appeared on his face as he studied the bike. That's what I was looking for. This motorcycle has a soul. The seller raised an eyebrow in surprise. Enthusiasm. Well, if that's really what you want, we can arrange a test drive. But I must warn you, we have a strict policy regarding test drives. We don't give such motorcycles to just anyone, the seller said with a sarcastic grin, as if testing Cristiano's patience. The seller walked away, leaving doubt in the air whether Cristiano would really be able to take a test drive. His arrogance and bias made it clear that he would not be an assistant in this process, but rather an obstacle. After waiting for a long time at the Harley-Davidson Fat Boy, carefully studying every detail of the motorcycle, Cristiano Ronaldo finally came up to the same salesman again. His expression was even more rigid now, and his posture exuded superiority, as if he was preparing to give a final answer. "Sir," he began, adjusting the cuffs of his suit, "I've talked to the manager, and unfortunately we can't allow a test drive. Our policy in this regard is very clear." Cristiano frowned slightly and inhaled slowly. "And what exactly is this policy?" he asked calmly. The salesman sighed irritably, clearly displeased with his insistence. "Only customers who meet certain criteria can test our motorcycles, including having the necessary experience to operate such powerful machines. Of course, this is not my personal decision, I just follow the rules of the company." Cristiano remained calm, but there was firmness in his voice. "I understand the need to ensure security, but I think we can easily solve this issue. I can assure you that I have the necessary experience of driving such motorcycles." The salesman smiled stiffly, but his tone remained condescending. "Oh, really? And what is your experience?" "Regards, but driving a Harley-Davidson Fat Boy isn't for everyone." Cristiano tilted his head slightly, assessing the seller. He realized that he was not interested in solving the problem, but rather was trying to humiliate him. "I've ridden motorcycles of different types and in a variety of conditions," he replied with composure. "I don't think he'll have any problems with that." But the salesman seemed determined not to give him a chance. "I understand you, sir, but it's not enough. We have a responsibility to our machinery and customers. We can't just allow such an exclusive bike to be tested without the necessary guarantees." Cristiano realized that it was not just about the company's policies. The seller clearly made a personal judgment about him. He took a deep breath, holding back his irritation, and spoke calmly again. "I'm not asking for any privileges, I'm asking for a fair chance to test the motorcycle before buying. It's standard procedure, isn't it?" The salesman hesitated for a moment, but his arrogance did not disappear. "Yes, sir, that's standard practice, but only if all the conditions are met. I have to follow the manager's instructions, it's not against you personally." Cristiano realized that it was not about the rules, but about the limited perception of him by the seller. For a moment, he wondered if he should just leave the store. After all, he doesn't have to tolerate such an attitude. But something inside him told him that sometimes it was important to defend his position. "I understand," Cristiano said calmly, "but if you really want to follow these rules, I'd like to talk directly to your manager. I think he will be able to explain the company's policy in more detail." A direct request wiped the smile from the seller's face. He clearly did not expect such confidence from Cristiano. "The manager is very busy right now," he replied, trying to close the question. Cristiano tilted his head, remaining adamant. "It's okay, I'll wait." The atmosphere in the cabin became tense. The rest of the staff began to notice the conversation between Cristiano and the salesman, some of them already whispering to each other. Cristiano took a step forward, his tone still even, but now there was a sense of firmness in him. "Let me ask you directly, are we really talking about the store's policy, or what do you think of me?" The salesman's eyes widened. He clearly did not expect such a question. He tried to keep his composure, but his tense posture betrayed confusion. "Sir, as I said, it's not personal, we're just following the rules." But Cristiano noticed his hesitation. He realized that behind the formal words, there was uncertainty. He didn't want to make a scene, but he wasn't going to leave without a good explanation. He remained standing next to the Harley-Davidson fat boy, examining every detail of it, while the salesman, named Andrew, crossed his arms over his chest and watched him with mild mockery. The showroom remained quiet, but the air seemed to be charged with tension. Every word Andrew said seemed to drip with the venom of disdain. "Sir, as I said," he began, adjusting his tie and holding his chin high, "these motorcycles are not suitable for everyone. It takes a certain level of experience and dedication to manage them. We are talking about machines with high performance." Cristiano looked up from the motorcycle and looked at the seller. His face remained neutral, but a spark of restrained irritation flashed in his eyes. "I understand all this. But what exactly makes you think that I don't have enough experience?" Andrew grinned. A brief remark, as if the question were absurd. He took a step forward and tilted his head slightly, his voice full of condescension. "Respectfully, sir, but your appearance does not inspire much confidence. This Harley, for example, is powered by a high-torque Milwaukee 814 engine. This is not just a bike that can be ridden by anyone. It requires experience, and most importantly, a suitable image." "A suitable image?" Cristiano asked calmly, knowing perfectly well what the seller meant, but deciding to give him a chance to explain himself. Andrew shrugged, glancing at Cristiano's cap and simple clothes. "You understand how it works. Our clients are people who value prestige and exclusivity. It's not just about driving a motorcycle, it's about imagining it, if you know what I mean." Cristiano was silent for a few seconds, comprehending what was said. Then he bowed his head slightly, as if appreciating the salesman, and with a note of challenge in his voice asked, "And what exactly makes you think that I won't be able to adequately represent this motorcycle?" Andrew blinked, clearly surprised by such a direct question, but quickly pulled himself together, smiling stiffly. "Well, let's see. You entered the salon and asked about the rental of motorcycles. Our clients usually come here with the intention of buying, without the slightest doubt. Besides," he paused, looking Cristiano up and down again. "Let's just say that your style is a little different from the spirit of Aurora Motors." Cristiano took a deep breath, holding back his growing irritation. He understood that Andrew was using his appearance as an excuse to belittle him. "So you're saying I don't look like I can afford this bike or handle it, right?" Andrew laughed again, now not even hiding his sarcasm. "Don't get me wrong, sir, but this bike requires a certain degree of commitment. And so far, I don't see any signs that you fit this criterion." Other customers and employees began to pay attention to their conversation. The whispers were barely audible, but constant. An elderly man standing by the Triumph crossed his arms over his chest and watched the situation with interest, expressing slight dissatisfaction. Cristiano leaned forward slightly, looking directly into Andrew's eyes. His voice remained calm, but there was a firm note in it. "Don't you think you're too quick to judge a person you've just met?" Andrew hesitated for a moment, but quickly regained his haughty posture. "Sir, I'm not judging, I'm just doing my job and protecting the interests of the store. At the end of the day, it's my job to make sure that our bikes are in good hands." Cristiano grinned briefly, but without a hint of amusement. "Good hands. Interesting," he said, stepping back from the motorcycle and crossing his arms over his chest. "Don't you think that before drawing conclusions, it is worth giving a person a chance to prove his competence?" Andrew looked uncomfortable, but his pride would not let him back down. "Sir, these motorcycles are not toys, and a test drive is not provided to everyone. Especially if there is no guarantee that the client will actually buy the vehicle." A tense silence fell. Cristiano stared at Andrew, not looking away. Then, with impeccable composure, he asked a question. "And what exactly makes you think I can't afford this motorcycle?" Andrew tried to hide his confusion by adjusting his tie again. He took a step back, but continued to control the situation. "Well, don't get me wrong, but our customers usually have a certain lifestyle that comes with owning these machines. Regards, but your case seems to be a little different." Andrew's tone was incredibly condescending. Now the entire showroom is completely focused on their conversation. One of the customers, who had been watching intently, shook his head in apparent disapproval. Another young customer muttered something to his wife, who looked just as stunned. Cristiano took a step forward, closing the distance between himself and Andrew. His voice remained steady, but now there was an iron determination in it. "Let me ask you a question, Andrew. Is all this persistence of yours really related to the store's policy, or is it related to your personal opinion of me?" Andrew's eyes widened, clearly not expecting such a direct question. He tried to hide his confusion, but it was obvious that he had his back against the wall. "Sir, as I said, it's not personal, we're just following our rules." "Rules that you seem to interpret in your own way," Cristiano retorted, still not raising his voice. "Because so far you have given me only excuses." The tension in the showroom has reached its peak. All those present listened attentively to their dialogue. It was clear that Andrew was beginning to lose control of the situation. He opened his mouth to say something, but before he could do it, he was interrupted by a harsh voice. "What's going on here?" All eyes were fixed on the store manager, James Carter, who was walking toward them with a firm step. His expression betrayed the discomfort of the situation, but he carried himself restrained and confident. James stopped beside them, looking at the salesman with a stern look. "I want to hear what's going on here," he said calmly but demandingly. Andrew swallowed nervously, changing his position. "Mr. Carter, I was just explaining our test drive policy to the client. He insists on the trip, but—" The manager intervened, not recognizing Cristiano. Andrew felt even more uncomfortable when the attention of everyone present turned to him. The question hung in the air: will the manager act fairly or follow the biased line of behavior of his salesperson? James Carter, the store manager, watched the situation from afar, but as he got closer, he suddenly realized who he was dealing with. Recognizing Cristiano Ronaldo, his behavior changed dramatically. There was a desire to immediately resolve the situation. "Mr. Ronaldo, I'm James Carter, the manager of this store," he began, holding out his hand. His expression now reflected a mixture of respect and awkwardness at the realization that he was dealing with a world football star. "I'm sorry I didn't intervene sooner. I would like to hear directly from you what happened here." Cristiano accepted the handshake and, with his characteristic restraint, began to tell. "Thank you for interfering, Mr. Carter. As I explained, I went to the store to buy a motorcycle, but the conversation quickly turned into doubts about my intentions and abilities, based on your salesperson's highly preconceived assumptions." James listened attentively, his face becoming more and more tense. Especially now that he realized who he was facing. Customers and employees in the showroom also tensed, realizing the seriousness of the moment. "That doesn't reflect the values we hold at Aurora Motors," James said firmly, casting a stern glance at Andrew. "Our goal is to treat all clients with respect and impartiality, regardless of their fame or appearance." Andrew, realizing that he had made a mistake with Cristiano's identity, became noticeably nervous. He tried to interject a word, perhaps to justify himself, but James raised his hand, silencing him. "That doesn't meet our standards, Andrew. I will personally organize a test drive for Mr. Ronaldo. I want to make sure that he gets the service that every customer deserves, and even more so a person who has clearly demonstrated his passion and respect for motorcycles." James turned to Cristiano, offering an immediate solution. "Let me fix the situation right now. I will ensure that the test drive goes without any further complications." Cristiano, maintaining his composure, thanked the manager. "I appreciate your promptness, Mr. Carter. It's good to see that the management is ready to step in and do the right thing." As the situation began to move in a positive direction, James gestured to an employee to prepare a Harley-Davidson in an outside parking lot. "Everything is ready for your test drive, Mr. Ronaldo," he said with a note of respect and a hidden apology for the recent inconvenience. As Cristiano made his way to the motorcycle, the tension in the cabin gradually dissipated, replaced by lively conversations about how to treat customers, famous or not. As he prepared for the test drive, Cristiano took one last look at James and Andrew, a silent reminder of the importance of fair treatment and equal opportunity. Starting the engine, he filled the space with the powerful roar of the Harley-Davidson Fat Boy, thereby symbolically ending the incident on a note of mutual respect and understanding. Cristiano gently stepped up and left Aurora Motors, leaving behind the tense atmosphere of the showroom. The engine of his Harley-Davidson Fat Boy rumbled like a symphony, filling the emptiness he had felt since arriving in this city. The calm streets opened up before him, and the motorcycle glided smoothly along the road, instantly reacting to every movement of his arms and legs. It was exactly what he needed: freedom, simplicity, unity with the road. As he drove, Cristiano reflected on the recent situation. It wasn't about the motorcycle or even the test drive itself. More important was how he was treated. The bias he encountered in the store was nothing new to him. He had long known that his simple way of dressing made people underestimate him. What bothered him most, however, was that such judgments were not only personal beliefs of the salesperson, but also part of a system in which appearance and status often mattered more than personality and respect. The road widened, green fields with rare trees stretched along the edges. Cristiano could feel the wind on his face, a reminder of why he loves to drive so much. At such moments, he felt a connection with the present, with life around him. This freedom was priceless, and Andrew, the arrogant salesman, may never understand it. Turning onto a small country road, Cristiano saw a roadside cafe. He parked the Harley at the entrance, turned off the engine, and slowly got off the motorcycle. Before he could take off his helmet, a group of young men at the next table began to whisper. "Hey, that's," one of them began, staring at Cristiano. As soon as he took off his helmet and smoothed his hair, another cafe patron exclaimed, almost knocking over a cup of coffee. "Come on. This is Cristiano Ronaldo." Cristiano smiled slightly, realizing that he was recognized. He politely waved his hand to the group of young people and headed to the counter of the cafe, where he ordered ordinary black coffee. The young people, visibly excited, hesitated for a few seconds before approaching. "I'm sorry," one of them said, holding his phone in his hands, ready to take a photo. "You're Cristiano Ronaldo, right? We are big fans of your talent." Cristiano smiled warmly and nodded. "Yes, it's me. It's nice to meet you." His modesty and friendliness immediately relaxed the group. They started talking about their favorite moments from his career, how his football achievements had inspired them. Cristiano listened attentively, thanked them for their kind words, and was genuinely interested in what they liked most about football. "You're so simple," one of them remarked, almost surprised. "I mean, you're one of the greatest stars in the world of football, and now you're just riding a bike like a normal person." Cristiano laughed softly and shook his head. "I'm just a person who loves to drive. No matter what I do in my career, these moments on the road allow me to be myself." After a few photos, Cristiano thanked them for the pleasant conversation and headed to his motorcycle. As he climbed the Harley, he waved his hand to the young men who were still impressed by his simplicity and benevolence. When he was back on the road, Cristiano felt the tension disappear. It was these moments, real, without filters and bias, that he valued the most. He knew that true wealth lies in how you treat people and how they treat you in return. And then he had an idea: maybe what happened at Aurora Motors could be turned into something positive. The road took him back to the city, and Cristiano felt Harley respond perfectly to every curve and acceleration. This motorcycle was not just a car, it embodied freedom and simplicity, exactly what he was looking for. When he finally returned to the Aurora Motors parking lot, he turned off the engine and momentarily wondered what to say to the manager. Cristiano got off the motorcycle and entered the showroom again. Inside, the atmosphere was tense. James Carter, the store manager, was waiting at the counter. In the far corner stood Andrew, an arrogant salesman, his arms crossed. His face reflected a mixture of irritation and discomfort. The rest of the employees and customers watched curiously, anticipating what would happen next. Cristiano took off his helmet and, holding it in one hand, headed straight for James. His posture was relaxed, but his eyes were determined. "I like this motorcycle," he began with a slight smile. "But before we talk about the purchase, there is a more important issue that needs to be discussed." James frowned, intrigued. "Of course, Mr. Ronaldo. In listening to you." Cristiano looked at Andrew, who immediately looked away, then turned back to the manager. "I want to talk about how you treat your customers. Because it seems to me that today can be a turning point not only for me, but also for everyone who crosses the threshold of your store." Everyone in the store froze, waiting for what he would say next. The showroom became quieter, but the tension was still in the air. James Carter looked at Cristiano with curiosity and expectation, while Andrew stood nervously to the side, pretending to be busy with something else. The rest of the staff pretended to clean up the mess, but out of the corner of their eyes they watched what was happening. Customers pretended to look at motorcycles, but their attention was focused on the conversation. Cristiano took a few steps forward, holding the helmet in one hand. His expression was calm, but there was determination in his eyes. "Mr. Ronaldo," James began with a smile, trying to tone down the atmosphere. "I hope you enjoyed the test drive. It's an amazing bike, isn't it?" Cristiano nodded slowly. "A splendid machine, no doubt. But before discussing the purchase, I want to clarify one important point." James tilted his head slightly, indicating that he was listening. "Of course, sir. We are ready to answer any questions." Cristiano took a deep breath and stepped forward, now addressing not only the manager but the whole team. His voice remained calm, but there was conviction in it. "From the moment I walked into this store, I was treated as if I was worthless. I was judged by my appearance, by the fact that I was dressed simply, by the fact that I asked a question that turned out not to meet your standards." James looked visibly awkward. In the far corner, Andrew pursed his lips together, as if he wanted to sink into the ground. "I don't mind strict rules," Cristiano continued, now looking directly at Andrew. "I understand the need to protect the store's property and make sure that motorcycles are used with respect. But what happened here is not related to the rules. It was a bias, a judgment. And this is unacceptable." James opened his mouth to say something, but Cristiano raised his hand, asking him to wait. "The problem is not only in the way I was met. The question is what it means. How many more people have been treated in the same way? How many customers have left here just because they weren't considered good enough? It's not just bad for business. This is wrong. If this continues, you are losing something much more valuable than money. You lose the ability to connect people with their dreams." James took a deep breath, clearly struggling for his composure. "Mr. Ronaldo, let me start with a sincere apology. There are no excuses for such behavior. It made you feel disrespected. I promise that this issue will be considered internally." Cristiano shook his head. "I don't need an apology. I don't want Andrew to be punished or for it to end with a simple sorry for the inconvenience. I need something more. I want this store to become an example of how a business should treat people." James looked puzzled. "And what exactly do you propose?" Cristiano crossed his arms, taking a firmer stance. "I propose to introduce a training program for all employees. Not only in customer service, but also in the development of empathy and respect. Teach your team to see customers as people, not just numbers or external images. And I want it to go public, so that everyone can see that you're really ready to change this store, to make it a place where anyone, regardless of background, can feel valued." Complete silence reigned in the hall. James considered the offer, while Andrew, standing in the corner, was visibly nervous, as if he wanted to disappear, but he knew that it was impossible. "I know what you're talking about," James said at last. And I admit that I have never thought about it before. I think this is a worthy proposal, but its implementation will not be easy. Our clients are accustomed to certain standards, and changing the approach can be risky." Cristiano smiled slightly. "The real risk is not to change anything. You have a chance to set an example, prove that a business can be profitable, and at the same time treat each client with respect. I do not ask for the impossible, I offer what is necessary." James paused for a few seconds, his gaze shifting from Andrew to the rest of the staff, who were now watching the conversation closely. He was aware that this was not just a private conversation, it was a moment that could determine the future of the store. Finally, he nodded. "Mr. Ronaldo, you're right. This really needs to be done. And if it improves our customers' experience and changes our image, then it's a risk worth taking." James took a step forward and held out his hand to Cristiano. "I accept your offer. Starting today, we will start implementing the changes you have proposed. I will immediately talk to the team and develop a plan to make this store a positive example." Cristiano shook hands with the manager, allowing himself a slight smile. "Thank you. I look forward to seeing you make this a reality." James turned to the staff, now with a more determined expression on his face. "I want everyone to know that a lot of things will change from now on. We will reconsider our attitude to customers and our idea of what our store should be." Andrew, still standing in the far corner, seemed shocked. He avoided Cristiano's gaze, but it was obvious that he was aware of the importance of what was happening. James gave him a stern look. "Andrew, we'll talk more about your behavior today. This does not reflect the principles that we want to see in our company." Cristiano glanced briefly at Andrew, but said nothing. He knew that the salesman had something to think about. When Cristiano finally left the shop, the atmosphere inside changed completely. Customers and employees who had previously watched in silence now applauded. Some smiled sincerely, others with relief, but everyone understood that something important had happened. Cristiano put on his helmet and sat back on the Harley, gently stepping on the gas. He waved to everyone present before heading off, knowing that he had accomplished something more today than just buying a motorcycle. As he returned to the set, Cristiano reflected on how small things can make a big difference. He understood that the path he had begun was just beginning. And as he felt the wind on his face, he asked himself, in how many other places could people be inspired to reconsider how they treat others? If you liked this story, we have many more that will warm your heart. Tap the screen to learn more stories about hope, compassion, and resilience.